Hello, friends, and welcome to Finance Working Mama. My name is Heather, and thank you so much for joining me today. You're probably wondering why I have an array of drinking containers in front of me. Well, I'm sure each of you have a place in your kitchen that has maybe half, maybe more. I'll have to be honest, this is only like half of my cabinet of drinking containers. And of course, they're all shapes, sizes, and use. We have the different sizes for coffee. I mean, you gotta have the big monster coffee one for those really tough mornings. And then you want the slender one for easier travel. And then don't forget about your water containers, especially for the kids. You've got the thermos ones, which are great for hot or cold beverages. And then you have the fancy ones for fun drinks and traveling on the go. And my favorite, personal favorite, this is the one my friend Mary gave me, and I love it. You could do cold or hot beverages in it. It says, this is probably wine. And some days it probably is wine. And you're wondering, what does this have to do with finance? Well, we're going to talk about behaviors and savings. And this has a little bit to do with that conversation. U.S. Foods did a survey in 2023, and the outcome of that survey proved that most American families were spending, on an average, $20 or less on each menu item. Then they took it a step further, and they wanted to know how much dollars were being spent per family member during the month going out to eat. So on the average, for each family member, it was $166. Now for my family of four, that comes out to about $664 a month. That's a lot if you think about that. That's in some cases people's car payments. And in some cases, that's an entire month of groceries for the family. For 7 days a week, for 4 weeks out of the month. And in some other cases, that's the utility costs for the month for some families. So what can you do? Goes back of changing behaviors. Identify where your money is going and decide to make a behavioral change. Why don't you say, well, instead of eating out 3 days a week, we cut it down to 1 day a week? More than likely, if you decide to make that behavioral change, you're going to save money regardless. And in this case, for the average American family, if they're spending $664 a month on food and eating out, we'll make a decision to cut that in half. So that way you're saving $334 a month to put that in something else. Goes back to planning. Plan your week. Understand the calendars. Put processes in place to help you be more successful. And most importantly, figure out a menu that your family is going to want to eat at home. It's going to take time, and it's probably going to be a little bit frustrating at first, but I promise you guys, if you do the work and change the behavior, it only reaps the reward of savings. So let's get back onto the topic of changing behaviors and revert back to the drink cups that I referenced at the beginning of this show. So I'm going to use an example of one of my friends, my dear friend, who comes into work every day, and before he enters the door, he always gets at least a large sweet tea from a local restaurant. So I did the math. That large sweet tea that he pays for every morning is $2.65. If you times that by 5, that is going to be $13.25 a week that he's spending on a large sweet tea. Over the course of the month, that is $53. Now, that's probably to some of you guys not that big of a deal, but that's just the sweet tea. On top of the fact that he also, at least 3 days a week, buys a biscuit to go along with the sweet tea. And that biscuit is about $4.25. You times that by that many days, it's going to be roughly around $12.75. That comes out to a monthly amount of $51. So you see where I'm gaining here. That's over $100 a month being spent on food from a restaurant or a drink from a restaurant that could be changed by a behavior. So let's step back and talk about the behavior. He's buying sweet tea. If you are a good Southerner, you know that it is not hard to make sweet tea. You might have to figure out what the ratio is to tea bags and water to get it to the strength that you enjoy your sweet tea. And you might have to play around with the amount of sugar you put in your sweet tea to get the dynamic that you like to the taste of what you're accustomed to your favorite restaurant that makes the sweet tea. If you invest in the box of tea bags and a pound of sugar, that's only going to cost you like $4.64 a month. And you know, all of those drink cups that you saw earlier, I'm sure that you can find one drink cup that could accommodate your morning sweet tea to get you there. I say that in putting in realistic behavior of just saying, you know what, instead of dropping by and picking up that sweet tea, I'm going to make my own gallon and carry my sweet tea with me in one of the many fancy little cups that we keep in our cabinet. Use those. And then let's talk about the biscuit. Now, I don't know how it is in the other parts of the United States, but I would have to say, Southerners, we love our biscuits. Breakfast is an essential part of our day, and there's nothing better than having a biscuit with your egg or any protein that you want. But it goes back to where it costs money. We already identified it costs around $4.25 for a biscuit. And every now and then you can get the buy one, get one that some of them will advertise. But on the average, it's going to be around the $4 mark. You can make that at home. Now, for my husband who loves breakfast, and that is an essential part of his day, I actually make breakfast sandwiches for him. And one, that controls a couple things. One, the cost of going out and getting it. And two, it controls what you're putting into your body. So I'm controlling the fact that I'm choosing a healthier bread and I'm choosing a healthier meat, so that way he has a less fat cholesterol content in his breakfast meal. So how do I go about that? I'm sure everyone knows that you can make a egg McMuffin at home. I simply just take the muffins out, cut them up, and do breakfast sausage. I patty it up and cook it. And then to make the egg portion bit easier, I will scramble up 6 or 8 eggs, put it in a casserole dish, stick that entire pan into the oven and let it all cook together. And I cut the egg in squares and I make sandwiches. That's going to make 6 sandwiches. I throw them in the freezer, and then during the week I will pull out 2 or 3, put them in the refrigerator so they can defrost, and he can heat it up in less than a minute during the week. That is only going to cost you $1.41. I'm sorry, that's $1.20. 6 muffins that you make at home is only going to be $1.20 in cost versus $4.25. So let's talk about breakfast burritos. Those are even more delicious, and I think a lot easier to make because you're scrambling up your protein, or you're cooking up your protein, you're scrambling up your eggs, you're slicing some cheese, and you're putting in tortillas and rolling them up in wax paper or aluminum foil. It takes less than a minute to heat up in the morning, and it's delicious. That cost is only $1.41 per burrito. That's still half the price of the cost of a breakfast burrito if you go to McDonald's. So this is what I'm saying. Just be a little bit proactive on changing your behavior. If you like breakfast sandwiches like most Americans, figure out how you can make them cheaper at home. And most importantly, how you're going to enjoy them. There's no point of setting a behavior that you don't quite enjoy to replace one that you really do enjoy. My husband prefers the burritos that I make versus the burritos he gets at McDonald's, and he really prefers the English muffins that I make versus the ones that he can get at McDonald's or a biscuit place. And most importantly, it's so much healthier as well. So you get two bonuses. One, you save money, and two, you have a healthier meal in front of you. So I encourage you, just look at the way you're spending your money. If you did this 7-day challenge, go back through and figure out what behavior you can change in your daily life that can help offset those expenses. All right, my update for January of my January challenge is the 3rd week of my challenge. And you know what? Going back to planning and preparing for the week to make sure it's more successful versus running out and having to spend money I don't need to spend. I do what I do every weekend is I make a 6-day meal plan and have 1 day for leftovers. We did eat out 1 day. On the 3rd week, we had a date night, and my kids went out with their babysitter for dinner. So there was one night that I didn't have to cook or worry about it, even though I planned for 6 days. And the 7th day, obviously, we did leftovers. Now, I planned 6 meals, and we ate 5 of the 6 that I planned. I did steak quesadillas, chicken with gravy, and stuffing that I did in the crock pot. I had a pork tenderloin, which that was delicious, and Ava Approved. That's my oldest daughter, who's very picky. She was a little judgy at first, but then she tried it and was like, oh my gosh, this is delicious. She had it for a couple of nights after that. I will share that recipe at the bottom. It's a crock pot recipe, and you don't have to cook it as long. And please do not overcook a tenderloin. Please don't cook it too well done. Cook it to medium. You can cook pork tenderloins to a pink. That way it won't be dried out or tough. It's supposed to be tender. Anywho, then I did a frozen pasta dish that I had in the freezer prior to my surgery. I pulled that out and had it defrosted. And again, we did salads and the turkey, deli turkey and cheese crescent rolls. I made that the week before and we really liked it, so I made it again. That was a family favorite. So I made all of that, and I had few leftovers, but for the vast majority, we ate everything. And it was the least prep time for Sunday that I've had for all month of January. And it was also the least time getting it ready. So for Sunday to prep for all of this, getting the steak that I had already frozen, already cooked from a different meal that I had, I just took that out, put it in the refrigerator to defrost. I pulled out the chicken to defrost for the crock pot recipe. I cut up all the veggies and washed them for a big salad that I had prepped and ready to go for the week, and all the veggies that I would need for that crock pot recipe. And that's really all I needed for vegetables. So it took me actually less than 20 minutes to prep for Sunday, and it took less than 15 minutes to put together and cook the meals for Monday through Friday. So that was a successful meal plan, I would have to say. Most definitely. Now, what I spent in groceries was much more than I have in the last 2 weeks. I actually spent about $107 on the groceries, and you're like, how did you go from like $40 to $50 a week to $107? Well, I couldn't help myself. There were a few things that my family needed that we were starting to run out of, but most importantly, there were a lot of sales going on things that we personally use for the household. And so at Aldi's, I spent about $73.89. And then I went to Hair Cedar, which is the Kroger branded store in my area. They had a lot of great sales with soups and rice and pastas that I use to fill my pantry. and I couldn't resist. It was like buy two, get two, buy two, get three free. I mean, those are just great deals. And it's all items that I use and the family uses throughout the month. So I did go and spend money on those, which came up to the tally of like $107 that I spent for the third week in January. So that leaves me only $48, I believe, for the month of January, and I have about 10 days left if you count from the 22nd to the 31st. That is 10 days. So, friends, let's see if I can do it. Do you think I can? I'm pretty proud of myself. Not only was I able to buy groceries for the family the last 3 weeks, but I also got some great sales to fill the pantry. Now let's see if I can make $48 last our family for 10 days. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope some of the ideas that I provided you gives you some ideas to change some behaviors, alter your spending habits, and make you think more creatively on how you can make changes within your household budget. Until next time, guys, you have a fantastic day.